Hey guys, got some breaking news for you. So, the special counsel who was investigating Joe Biden over his handling or mishandling of classified documents has returned his report. And there's a piece of this that is not shocking. They are filing no charges, but there is another piece of this which is really wild, which part of the reason he gives for not charging Joe Biden is effectively that he says he is too feeble minded for a jury to find him guilty at this point. Let me just break this down for you, everything we know at this point, because it really is a very wild development. So this is from the Washington Post headline: Special Counsel, no charges for Biden in classified documents probe. Evidence of willful mishandling of classified papers, but not enough to win a conviction, according to the special counsel. I'll read to you from the Washington Post. They said Joe Biden carelessly handled classified materials found at his home and former office after his vice presidency and shared government secrets with his ghostwriter, but that evidence was not strong enough to justify charging him with crimes, according to a long-awaited special counsel report released Thursday. The 345-page Justice Department finding ends an investigation that has hung over the president's head for more than a year. The report could prove to be a political liability, however, because it describes President Biden, 81, as a forgetful old man who kept notebooks and documents with classified information at his home, a stinging characterization that will likely be used against him by Republicans. I think anyone who has seen him recently might think twice about their desire to have him in the White House again, based not only on that, but on his recent actions. Biden, in a written statement, defended himself as someone who has always taken seriously the protection of national security secrets. I cooperated completely, threw up no roadblocks, and sought no delays. In fact, I was so determined to give the special counsel what they needed that I went forward with 5 hours of in-person interviews over 2 days amid the U.S. government response to an international crisis, Biden said, referring to the Hamas October 7th attack on Israel. I just believed that's what I owed the American people so they could know no charges would be brought and the matter closed. Special counsel Robert Hur, who interviewed the president at the White House himself, found evidence that Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen, but concluded that evidence does not establish Mr. Biden's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Also, Hur's team said prosecuting Biden would be, quote, unwarranted based on our consideration of the aggravating and mitigating factors laid out in Justice Department prosecution policies. To secure a conviction, officials would need to prove to a jury that Biden retained the information willfully. And they go on to say that that would be an obstacle because the jury would likely find Biden to be a sympathetic figure and a, quote, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. The president of the United States. That's who we're talking about here. Prosecutors also suggested might not have struck Biden as noteworthy that he was in possession of classified documents so soon after his term as vice president had ended. As if that is not bad enough, let me go ahead and pull up for you some of the specific parts of this report that mention the memory lapses that Biden apparently suffered from during this interview. This is from Branko Marcetic, who read through the report and pulled out some of the critical pieces that showed Biden's, quote, diminished faculties and faulty memory. According to the report, in both the interview recordings with his ghostwriter and when they interviewed him, during which the report says he had gotten worse, he could not remember when he was vice president, and he couldn't remember within several years of when his son had died. Let me read you these sections from the report. Here's one piece. He says, in addition, Mr. Biden's memory was significantly limited during both his recorded interviews with the ghostwriter in 2017 and in his interview with our office in 2023, and his cooperation with our investigation, including by reporting to the government that the Afghanistan documents were in his Delaware garage, will likely convince some jurors that he made an innocent mistake rather than acting willfully, that is, with intent to break the law as the statute requires. Here's another piece. Mr. Biden's memory also appeared to have significant limitations, both at the time he spoke to Zwanitzer in 2017, as evidenced by their recorded conversations, and today, as evidenced by his recorded interview with our office. Mr. Biden's recorded conversations with Zwanitzer from 2017 are often painfully slow, with Mr. Biden struggling to remember events and straining at times to read and relay his own notebook entries. That's from 2017. That was some years ago. And they said that his memory had gotten worse. In his interview with our office, Mr. Biden's memory was worse. He did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended, quote, if it was 2013, when did I stop being vice president? And forgetting on the second day of the interview when his term began. In 2009, am I still vice president? He did not remember even within several years when his son, Beau, died, and his memory appeared hazy when describing the Afghanistan debate that was once so important to him. Among other things, he mistakenly said he had a real difference of opinion with General Carl Eikenberry, when in fact, Eikenberry was an ally whom Mr. Biden cited approvingly in his Thanksgiving memo to President Obama. Last piece here. They say, given the intelligence and military officials present, the topics discussed, Mr. Biden should have realized the notes did or likely to contain classified information, but taken as a whole, the evidence will likely leave jurors with reasonable doubts about whether Mr. Biden knew he was sharing classified information with Zwanitzer, that's his ghostwriter, and intended to do so. For these jurors, Mr. Biden's apparent lapses and failures in February and April will likely appear consistent with the diminished faculties and faulty memory he showed in Zwanitzer's interview recordings and in our interview of him. Therefore, we conclude that the evidence does not establish that Mr. Biden willfully disclosed national defense information to Zwanitzer. So, absolutely stunning that in this report, special counsel from within Biden's own DOJ, they are saying they did not charge him, in part because he was too old and feeble-minded to really know what he was doing, was unable to cite even with several years when his own son, Beau, died. Biden team out blasting the report, saying, we're glad you didn't charge us, but this was inappropriate. They don't say what was inappropriate, but we can all guess what part they object to here. Biden legal team blasts special counsel's inappropriate report, saying that they were trashing the president. President Biden's legal team on Thursday blasted parts of a report by special counsel Robert Hur, accusing him of investigative excess that resulted in trashing the subject of an investigation. Bob Bauer, Biden's personal counsel, said in a statement shortly after the report's release that the public's findings violate well-established department norms, that it was essentially trashing the subject. Quote, the Department of Justice Inspector General observed only a few years ago that high-profile investigations, such as those of a president, may be subject to scrutiny not typical of the average criminal case, but that does not provide a basis for violating well-established department norms and essentially trashing the subject of an investigation with extraneous, unfounded, and irrelevant critical commentary. The special counsel could not refrain from investigative excess, perhaps unsurprising given the intense pressures of the current political environment. Whatever the impact of those pressures on the final report, it flouts department regulations and norms. White House also pushed back, calling parts of the report inappropriate and inaccurate. We disagree with the number of inaccurate and inappropriate comments in the report. Nonetheless, the most important decision that no charges are warranted is firmly based on the facts and evidence. Again, they did not mention which part was inappropriate, but we are presuming it's the part describing Biden as a, quote, sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory, and conveying that Biden's memory had significant limitations. Guesses that that is the part of the report they find to be inappropriate and are objecting to. I don't know what to tell you guys. It is absolutely wild that this is where we're at, that these are the two candidates that we're faced with, that the Democratic Party shut down any and all possibility of having a Democratic choice in the primary. You know, they claim to believe this election to be existential. They claim to believe democracy is on the line. And yet here we are with a man who, by his own Justice Department's accounting, is too feeble-minded to even remember the basics of when he was vice president and when his own son died, or the basic contours of debates. Of course, this comes amid a rash of reports about, and not just reports, but video that we can all watch of how much he is struggling on a daily basis to recount basic facts, stories, figures, faces from his life. We now have 2 incidents within a week's time of him telling a story about some world leader and him naming 2 different world leaders who have been dead for years. We had another incident where he was attempting to update us on a Hamas response to a ceasefire proposal, where he painfully struggled to recall the word Hamas, had to be sort of prompted by someone who was nearby. These lapses are common, but they're becoming more and more and more regular. His team also, and he also recently deciding not to do a Super Bowl interview sit down. This is the second year that they've decided to do that, but this year it would have been with a relatively friendly news outlet, and of course passing up on the chance to get himself in front of millions and millions of voters at a time when he trails often in the polls to Donald Trump. So voters say overwhelmingly his age and ability is a top concern for them. And needless to say, this report will do absolutely nothing to alleviate their concerns.